Welcome to Motivational Mondays. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for those who will, excuse me, look at this in the future, possibly. Um, Miracles have been a problematic thing for all of us, maybe you, but I feel for humanity for a long time, because we're always looking for this extraordinary miracle, like the ones we hear biblically, where the blind see and the deaf hear and the people who don't walk instantly. And those miracles do exist. Might be seen as far and few between, but I do believe that those type of things do exist. But we don't really experience that type of miracle that often. We often hear of medical miracles or things of that nature. But interesting, when you think about miracle and how miracle is described, is something that is unexplainable, that science can't explain, or the supernatural. So it doesn't give us, in a definition way, it doesn't give us much to consider outside of that parameter. So ideologies, church, state, church, and things like that, they actually go around, they have clergy or people in certain places that go around and look to document miracles. And they look for specifics to catalog them and to verify them. But we need to look at, or maybe consider, miracles in a different way. Miracles are happening every single second and every single day. They're not happening in that scope that we're thinking about, where they're unexplained, science can't explain it, or it's a supernatural process. Listen, if you thought about miracles in your life, how would you look at that and say, where are the miracles in my life? And I think miracles can be as little as really anything that you can consider a miracle. I think we take for granted as people, and at times, all those little miracles that happen every single day. The miracle of waking up, the miracle of a baby being born, or the miracle of all the cellular things that are happening in your body every second. The miracle that we exist on a planet that can sustain us. Even though the planet's taking a beating these days, the planet's performing miracles every single day. Who is having problems with addiction and goes into a recovery. We see miracles with people with addiction who beat their addiction. That's a miracle. People who are looking to gain a better physique with something, whether it's weight or muscle growth or things of that nature, when they make their goals, that's a miracle. When you set a goal for yourself and you set an intention and you work hard toward that, when that happens, that's a miracle. A butterfly coming out of its metamorphosis and becoming this beautiful, from a caterpillar to a butterfly, is a miracle. All the animals that are on the planet are miracles. So I think for us tonight, we should probably consider, for those who might listen, consider that miracles are happening around us every single day, but our consciousness or our thinking is not in a state of recognition. So it's important to consider to come to a state of consciousness and recognition where you're starting to see these miracles, and particularly seeing these miracles in your life and start to have recognition of them. So when you start to have recognition of these miracles, it actually starts to alter your energy. It starts to alter your vibration from a lack of miracles to this possible potentiality in yourself where a substantial miracle can happen. And that's what we're all looking for, this absolute miracle. But all those little things in between, it's not a miracle. Why is it not a miracle? Why? Because I mean, my daughter is an RN, labor and delivery nurse. She sees miracles or has seen miracles every day, baby being born. You get into that space and you're doing it all the time and it becomes repetitive. And let's look at that for an example. Science can explain it. They can explain it. So yes, it's a miracle, but it's not that huge miracle. No, it is a huge miracle. You can look at that in so many different ways in your life and start to create this, like I said, this recognition that miracles are happening every day on many different levels and many different scales. When you start to see those scales and you start to build on those scales, you actually start to create abundance miracles. So a abundance of miracles will start to relate to you to a bigger miracle within yourself. So little story for me, and this is not a great story, but for me, it was a great story. I was in a car driving. I think I was in sixth grade. I was in the front seat and we had just stopped at Dairy Queen. I had a big puppy in my hands, which is like an ice drink. And I had a cherry pie and we're driving down the road and it was a fast road. We were doing 50 plus miles an hour. There was a green light and a car went through the red light and we broadsided the car at 55. So the next thing I knew, I was outside of the car, laying on the hood of the car that we ran into. The miracles happened that day. Even though we can look at bad things happening in our lives, that the outcome of that was it was a miracle. I didn't have a scratch or a broken bone or anything in my life. So that's a miracle. Another example, I was 18. I worked for a band at a nightclub and I worked the door for them and collected their money. Make a long story short, at 3 a.m., I made the mistake getting in a car and taking a ride to get a ride home. And I ended up in another car accident, flipping over twice in a Mustang at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I had a leather jacket on. I put my hands up in front of my face and the windshield shattered all into my arms and into my coat. I still have the coat, by the way. It's a relic in my closet. That was a miracle that day. That leather coat and something, I would have looked like Freddy Krueger or something if I didn't have that leather coat on. That was a miracle that day. Sometimes we make decisions that are bad. And so one of those instances for me was the decision that I was driving and it wasn't a bad decision. The other instance I'm telling you about was a bad decision. I made a bad decision. Sometimes bad decisions we make can have outcomes that are a miracle. Sometimes all these little things. So consider, sometimes we get in a relationship that's not the best and it doesn't work out. Well, now things have changed, but the possibility is it's a miracle that you came to a conclusion that now you're in a different place and you're much happier. So all of these miracles are happening all the time. Particularly the really hardcore unseen miracles are the miracles that are happening within yourself. And the miracles that you can manifest and create with the guidance of your spirit, the guidance of energy and vibration, to thoughts, into manifestation, into physiological manifestation, and into that you want to manifest in the outside world. So where is the miracle going to happen? It's my belief that we're all looking for this Christ consciousness or this or that or the other thing for this miracle to happen. But inherently, the real miracle is happening within you. So again, allowing yourself the recognition to see the miracles around you, but also realizing that in a state of miracle manifestation, that you can start manifesting miracles in your own life based on decisions, based on actions, based on how you move and where you're going to move. There's a kind of an atonement, if you will, a self-atonement. So we talk about self-love, we talk about self-respect and all of these things, and you won't hear the word self-atonement that much. But when you make that decision to yourself and you attach yourself to the miracle that's happening within yourself, that is the moment when you start drawing miracles to yourself. Because you're attuning and you're atoning and tuning yourself into that resides inside you, that is of a creative force that's performing all the miracles around us on the planet, universally, astrologically. There's so much stuff happening that we can't even fathom. If you were to consider this, what the size of you are in the universe in relationship to the universe, you would be the size of the tip of a pin in relationship to the universe. So a lot of times that concept, we look at ourselves as there's an insignificance to us in the size and scope of what's happening. We get that sense of feeling of small, or we're not worthy, or things of that. So know that those are the type of things inherently that are going on mentally inside you that are preempting you from experiencing the true miracle. So again, the true miracle is you. The true miracle to atone to is that resides in you. And when you do that, everything around you starts to happen in a certain way. But consider, for me, in the two stories that I told you, I was always told I was a miracle since I was a young child. It was beaten into, not literally, but it was beaten into me every single day. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, The Help, and it's a great movie. And this little girl and her caregiver at the house always would take her aside and tell her, don't ever think you're anything but wonderful and beautiful and you're perfect. So when you start to believe that, I was led to believe that I was a miracle my whole life. So I truly believe that. My mother installed that and constantly told me that my whole life. So I believe that I was always in a state where I believed I was a miracle and miracles would happen. Even though bad things happen and have happened to me, I still believe that it's a miracle that I'm here, that I'm a miracle that I survived. So I was in two bad accidents that very well could have taken my life. It's a miracle that I'm here. It's a miracle that I was born. It's a miracle that you're here and you were born. Some of you have children. That experience within yourselves, if you're a mother or a father, an absolute miracle. I'll give you another a little example. And this is an obscure example, but consider someone possibly, or consider the story possibly somebody getting very ill and getting a very bad prognosis that they have very little time to live. And That illness allows a person to, within themselves, to be bigger than the issues with them and find reconciliation. Reconciliation with yourself, with others, is a miracle. It's just a way of looking at things differently. And it kind of segues me to reconciliation within yourself, right? Not, you don't want to look at this part of you, or you don't want to look at that experience, or you don't want to look at things that bother you. But when people that I've worked with over the years start to do that inner work, right? Those things inherently within them that are causing dis-ease or um, fractures within them, when they start looking at that and they find reconciliation within themselves, they become a different person. It's a miracle. I know anybody and everybody's had that experience where they saw somebody and they said to themselves when they left, "Oh my God, they really look terrible." And then sometime down the road, you see them again and they look absolutely wonderful. They reconciled something with themselves, whether it's physiologically, mentally, or in the connection and atonement and attunement to their spirit. Our body's a miracle, but what's even really cool about ourselves is we've kind of, if you believe in this, and I do, we've come into this life and incarnated into this life with a soul or a spirit. How does that happen? Forget the part that you're born in your physical body, that all of these things came together to make you, that knew who you were, what you were, how you were, your eye color, your hair color, how tall, how small, your finger size, everything. But how cool that you have a living eternity in you. I truly believe that. I think people who work in spirit, people who start to meditate, people who start to find that reconciliation within themselves, see the miracle in that. When we move into this meditation, that's how the meditation is going to go. We're not going to we may look at the miracles around us, but the most important thing for us in a meditative state is to connect to the miracle within ourselves, making that attunement and that atonement to that, and realizing and having recognition around it. Once you start to have the miracle mind or the miracle body in your consciousness that you own and you have, everything around you will change. And it's not really my rules, and don't take my word for it. It's universal law. It's a law of cause and effect. It's the laws of what you attract and how you attract it in that way. Station is the same way. And we've talked about all that in so many different ways. Before we go into the meditation, let's look at one other thing. If you attune and recognize that you're a miracle, you can start to become the miracle for others. You can start to become the miracle for your family, the miracle for your community, because all those little things, as insignificant as you think they might be, because they're not that, well, your actions and how you bring the miracle of you to a situation will start to create a miracle for somebody else. You don't need the recognition from others in that place. You become the giver of miracles. I will absolutely tell you that if you work in the vibration of love with somebody in a moment, it can change them. If you work with them for years, you've helped facilitate and perpetuate a miracle in somebody else. When you are the volunteer in service in the miraculous miracle that you are, and you start creating miracles around you, the creative force brings more miracles to you. That's universal law. That's just the way it happens. Not, and again, these are not my concepts. These are true concepts when you are working in the right energy and right vibration. It's not always an easy process, but thing it is and always comes down to you. If we looked at Jesus for an example for a minute, a perfected soul, a perfected person, if we looked at any of the great masters that walked the earth, they all had the capacity of believable healing. It necessarily wasn't anything else, but they had the recognition within themselves that they were a miracle and that their belief in the miracles of a creative force could perpetuate miracles. So you can perform miracles. You're working on a vibration and on an energy where it's possible, and you can do it. So take that and run with it if you can. Don't run too fast though. Try to run smoothly and consistently towards it. You'll find that even in older age and as you get older and as you get to a place of transition, that you'll see the miracle in your life and you'll see the miracle that even death within itself is a miracle, that eternal life goes on. You'll just look at things differently. So be the miracle, project the miracle, and just let it unfold. And you'll see the big miracle. So that's miracle in a nutshell in my world, Brad's world. And let me tell you something, that's a bizarre place sometimes. I hope you guys resonated with that and you saw maybe a clearer picture or a clearer understanding. Crying is a miracle. Let yourself feel what you need to feel around it. Take in what you can take in at any given moment. And I'm sending you all a great big miracle. So long for now. We're going to pause for a few minutes just to stop, and then we're going to go into the meditation.